Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film St. Vincent. Is basically a star vehicle for Bill Murray. He doesn't do lead roles a lot, but he's made an exception for this film. He's probably one of the best comedic actors of the past 30 years. And when you think of Bill Murray and you think of his major successes, they're all films that are directed by pretty major directors, whether it's Ivan Reitman or Harold Ramis or Wes Anderson. Most of his biggest performances that we still talk about and quote all the time are directed by a major and very skilled director. And unfortunately, St. Vincent doesn't have that going for it. It does have a very familiar Murray plot, which is well within his wheelhouse. A lot of stars do that. They kind of do the same kind of movie over again. In this case, Bill Murray playing an older shut-in Vincent who babysits a young kid named Oliver after school while his mom's still at work and teaches him the world is kind of right out of, things like Meatballs and Rushmore. And this is probably the corniest and cheesiest version of that. Now, this is theoretically considered an indie film. You could get mad about that and say this isn't very art house, this isn't something that would play at a cool art house theater. And unfortunately, at this point in time, that is actually not true. It probably would play at one of those theaters. But back in the day, this is the kind of film that you'd have be in the multiplex, not playing in the art house. But see, the thing about independent film is independent film has nothing to do with its artistic value or anything like that. It's just referring to it being financed independently or outside of the studio system. Really, anything can be an independent film. It has nothing to do with artistic quality. It doesn't have to have John Cassavetes as an influence. So in that case, a film like St. Vincent, that would clearly have been a star vehicle for someone like Bill Murray and opened on 1,000 or so screens in the mid-90s, can be considered an indie film and get this kind of release and act like it is a kind of film that it really is not. It has nothing really in common with what you usually or used to be able to consider an indie film to be. It's really a star vehicle in the worst way. And the quality of it is very sitcom level. It's plainly shot, its direction is very vanilla, and the only thing that's really driving it is a pretty good comedic performance by Bill Murray. Bill Murray always shined with more than just himself. He's done a lot of interesting performances in forgettable movies. I don't know if anyone remembers Mad Dog and Glory. Bill Murray is a great actor. He's a great comedic actor, and he really makes this film work a lot better than it honestly should. It needs a lead movie star kind of performance to get it to work. It's kind of made that way. It's made like an empty kind of star vehicle. Bill Murray, whose character of Vincent acts like he's this curmudgeon shut-in and shows this kid the world. It turns out his wife, who has Alzheimer's, is in a nursing home, and he comes to visit her even though she doesn't remember who he is. He has a stripper prostitute who hangs out with him, played by Naomi Watts, doing a really terrible Russian accent that's almost as bad as like from Rocky and Bullwinkle when Natasha would say like, "Oh, moose and squirrel." She definitely stays with it and gets it to work in some parts, but it's just really laughably awful. It's the kind of character you expect from a movie like this, unfortunately. And this movie kind of really goes into predictability with the kid. Eventually they have a class assignment where you have to pick a person who you would consider to be a living saint, and you know the name of the movie, so most of these things you can second guess, and this just felt like it was filling in slots from other of these so-called newfound cutesy indie movies. It even has a score that sounds like it's by John Bryan, but isn't. It was obnoxiously like what I guess we're supposed to have as an indie movie score. It almost felt like a sitcom, that bad kind of paint by numbers, real studio direction that you expect from a bland, melt your heart kind of older studio vehicle. I actually expect more from Melissa McCarthy. Whether I like her films or not, she usually does a pretty good comedic performance, and this film is just really kind of bland. I don't know if this was because it's considered more of an Oscar picture and for her to stay away from her like big major studio comedies, but I don't think this was the right role for it. I don't really like films that are more about the acting than the story or the direction or how it's made. You have a great performance by Bill Murray, but but it's kind of like if you made a cheeseburger and the only thing that was good was the beef, and the cheese was off, and the tomato was rotting, and the lettuce was rancid, and the bun was stale, and you ate it and you'd be like, oh, that was awful, but this beef is so good. It's just a rotten, predictable movie. You have a really cutesy kid in it who sounds like whoever it was in the Peanuts gang who said sir a lot. It just felt like it borrowed from so many different things in really unoriginal, pathetically boring ways. I mean, this was one of the most predictably boring movies I've seen all year, and it honestly left me in kind of a bad mood because it was just so drainingly, frustratingly trying to be an indie cutesy kind of thing with this father-son type curmudgeon relationship with Bill Murray. And it's sad because I think Bill Murray is a really interesting actor. He's made a lot of bad movies work a lot better than they should have otherwise. But that's not really why you love Bill Murray. You love Bill Murray for those classic movies. You don't love him for those forgettable moments in his filmography when you're like, oh yeah, he was in Larger Than Life. He works well with a good director. He needs someone to play with who knows how to use Bill Murray. Sure, that scene where he's singing along to Bob Dylan is really funny, but that has nothing to do with the movie. It's done after the movie, during the credits, and you can actually watch it online, so there's really no reason to see this movie. This is the kind of thing that in the 90s I always thought was kind of a lamer studio vehicle, which I thought was kind of a waste of time. St. Vincent is full of just kind of like that empty, like kind of return to me, basically studio comedy that we've kind of forgotten about. And when people go, why don't we have films like that anymore? And then I see one of those films on like HBO 7. Oh, I'm so fucking glad we don't make movies like 9 Months anymore. And I see something like St. Vincent, which is supposed to be like an awards prestige picture. It's supposed to be getting Oscar buzz for Bill Murray and be this kind of lighthearted, like nice comedy. It is an awfully predictable, boring piece of crap. The only thing that's really worth watching in this film is Bill Murray. But I think I would much rather see Bill Murray in a good movie, even in a supporting part where he's used well and used by a director who knows how to use him, than seeing him put in a subpar star vehicle like this. So if you have seen St. Vincent and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.